Hello, Willard Wildcats. There is something very exciting coming up this week, something space related, and I want to share the information with you. Now, I've been able to visit some classes to share some pictures and give you some information, but there's just not enough time to visit all the classes, so I made this video for you. There's a lot of amazing photos and pictures in this video, and unless it says otherwise, they're all from the NASA webpage or video presentations or their archives. There is a lot of information to share with you, so let's get started. You know that we are on the planet Earth. It looks like a flat circle in this picture, but it is sphere-shaped, like a ball. Our Earth is one of 8 planets in our solar system, all orbiting the sun. Some of the other planets are much larger than ours, the gas giants. Other planets near Earth are more like Earth, smaller and rocky. One planet that is close to us is Mars. Scientists have studied Mars for a very long time, and we know a lot about the surface of this planet. We even have photographs of its surface. How do we have a photo of the surface of Mars? Because we have sent spacecraft to Mars. We sent satellites to orbit Mars and landers to its surface. We've sent 4 different rovers to Mars, 4 different wheeled vehicles that can move across the Martian surface, taking pictures and performing experiments. This week is very exciting because this week a 5th rover will land on Mars, the Perseverance Rover. All the names of the rovers mean something. Well, a formal definition of perseverance is that it is persistence in doing something, despite difficulty or delay in achieving success. That means that you keep going, you keep working, and keep trying at something, even though it is hard and even though it will take a long time. Perseverance is an important characteristic in an IB learner. Just because something is hard does not mean you shouldn't keep trying. You need to be persistent. You need to have perseverance. And you keep trying, you keep going, until eventually you succeed. Perseverance is also important for this rover because it will have to keep going for a long time, even though it will be hard to do its work. This is what the Perseverance rover looks like. This picture was taken when it was being built. You can see how large it is next to this person. It's about the size of a car. Here you can see the inside of the rover. Scientists and engineers worked hard to carefully design and install all of the electronic parts that will help the rover complete its mission. The rover was built at JPL. Now that's exciting to think about because JPL, the Jet Propulsion Laboratory, lies on the northwest border of Pasadena. It was built just a few minutes away from us. And some of our Willard parents are JPL scientists and engineers. We have a connection with the rover because it was built so close to us by some people we know. The Mars 2020 mission was launched into space last July 30th, last summer, with the Perseverance rover on board. It is still going, and it is heading for this part of the surface of Mars. This is Jezero Crater, seen from far above Mars's surface. Now, it's hard to tell how big or small this area is. If I've done my map reading right, the distance between these 2 dots is about the distance between Willard and JPL, about 6 miles as the crow flies. Here's another view of the landing site, showing how uneven the surface of Mars is. It is difficult to land a spacecraft here, but that is exactly what is going to happen this week on Thursday, February 18th. At about 1 in the afternoon, the Mars 2020 mission will reach Mars and the rover will land. Now this is called the entry, descent, and landing. The spacecraft will enter the Mars atmosphere, descend or go down through the atmosphere to the surface of Mars, and the rover will land. I want to share with you a series of NASA drawings to show what scientists think this will look like. Now, remember, these are really good drawings, but they are not photographs. This has not happened yet. These are drawings to help us understand what will happen. So first, the spacecraft part of the mission will separate from the lander part. The spacecraft part will be left behind in space. The landing capsule will then go down through the Martian atmosphere. There will be a lot of friction as the capsule moves through the air, creating a lot of heat. After the capsule slows down some, it will release a parachute, causing it to slow down even more. Now in this drawing, you can see the bottom of the capsule. The bottom part is the heat shield. It can get very, very hot, and it protects the rover inside the capsule from overheating. But the rover needs to get out. So after the capsule slows down enough, the heat shield will be blown off, and inside the capsule is the rover and the descent stage of the lander. These two will be released from the capsule, and the descent stage has its own rockets to fly above Mars's surface. Cameras on the rover will be looking at the Martian surface, measuring and comparing what it sees with map data so it can figure out where it is and where the landing site is. The descent stage will fly to the correct location, and then it will lower the rover down through the air on a sky crane, cables that slowly lower the rover to the surface of Mars. Once it is safely down, the cables will separate, the descent stage flies to another location to crash land, and the rover is ready to begin its mission. Here is what is amazing about that complicated landing sequence. All Mars rovers need to land themselves. It takes too long for a message to travel through space from Mars to Earth and then back again to Mars for the NASA team to communicate with the rover while it lands. It takes a long time for a radio message to travel between Mars and the Earth, up to 20 minutes. But it only takes 7 minutes between the time the spacecraft enters the Martian atmosphere and the time it takes for the rover to land. If anything goes wrong in there, there isn't enough time for a message to be sent back to a person on Earth, and they get the message and then they send out new instructions to the lander. There's just not enough time. It is an amazing feat of technology for people to have not only sent a spacecraft to Mars, but to have programmed it to be able to land itself. Now, once it has landed, the Perseverance rover will look something like this. Now, remember, this is just a drawing. It isn't there yet. There are many parts to the rover. It has strong wheels that can drive over the rocky surface. It has many cameras, and it has a long arm holding a turret which contains many science tools. There are many, many sensors and antennae on the rover to do scientific experiments to examine the atmosphere and the geology of Mars. The Perseverance rover has its own mission once it has landed. It will look for habitability. It will look for places where there might have been microbial life on Mars. It will look for biosignatures. It will look for fossils of microbial life. It will take samples of rock and Martian soil, and it will do some experiments to test the Martian atmosphere to see if oxygen can be produced, can be released from Martian air. So, what does it mean to look for habitability? To look for places where there might have been microbial life on Mars? Well, all living things that we know of need water. So Martian geologists look for signs of water. So let's think first about water on Earth. Wherever there is a river emptying out into an ocean or lake, The river splits into many small rivers, and a structure is formed called a delta. The delta looks like a lot of fingers of water spreading out and emptying into the lake or ocean. And now look at the landing site again. This area of Mars is thought to be a dried up lake bed, with a delta marking where the river flowed out to the lake. Do you see it? The rover will land next to this dried out delta and will travel up and across it, looking for more evidence that there used to be water here. Perseverance will use a helicopter-like drone to help it look across the Martian landscape. This helicopter, named Ingenuity, will be able to send photos back to the rover as well as to scientists on Earth, who can send Perseverance to particularly interesting looking spots to check out. Perseverance can identify the minerals found in the rocks on Mars. Some of these minerals only form in certain environments on Earth where there is a lot of water. So why are scientists so interested in looking for evidence of water? Mars is cold and dry now. Any water that there used to be has long since dried up or frozen under the surface. Well, scientists are looking for water because if there ever used to be life on Mars, it needed water. And scientists are looking for any evidence of microbial life. What is microbial life? Well, microbial life are microbes. A microbe is a living thing that is too small to be seen, kind of like germs. Bacteria and single-celled fungi are some examples of microbes. Microbes can live in some places on Earth that other living things cannot live. For example, this is a picture on Earth of some hot springs. Hot springs are a place where magma, molten rock, is near the surface of the Earth. Water underground gets heated up by the magma. It gets very hot, and geysers and hot springs form. It is too hot here for most living things. See how the plants are far away? They do not grow right next to the hot springs. But the water is full of all sorts of microbes. Those bright orange and green colors you can see are created by microbial life. This is the sort of life that scientists are looking for on Mars, not dinosaurs or little green Martians walking around. They're looking for evidence that a long time ago, microbes might have lived there. Perseverance will take soil and rock samples to look for microbial fossils. It will take samples in these small white tubes. Perseverance will drill into the rock, and this drawing is what the drilling will look like. Each sample will be encased in a white tube, and then it will be dropped there, left behind for a future mission to Mars to pick up and bring back to Earth. What might these fossils look like? Well, there are places on Earth where there are bacterial mats that form in warm, shallow water like these in Western Australia. And they form these lumpy mounds called stromatolites. They're formed by mats of microbes that trap dirt and sand in them as they grow. A fossil stromatolite looks like a lumpy, rocky mound, but when you cut it in half, you can see all of the layers of trapped dirt and sand caught by the microbes. And this is exactly what scientists will be looking for in the rock sample. They'll be looking for layers like this. And if they find them, that is great evidence that microbial life was once living in the shallow water on Mars. Another one of Perseverance's missions is to test the Martian atmosphere. There is very little oxygen in the atmosphere on Mars, but humans need oxygen. Some scientists wonder if we will ever be able to have humans traveling to Mars and setting up a research station there. But to do so, we will need oxygen. Not only oxygen for us to breathe, but oxygen that can be used as a fuel. So Perseverance also contains the Moxie experiment. Moxie stands for Mars Oxygen In Situ Resource Utilization Experiment. Moxie. That golden cube is the Moxie unit being loaded into the Perseverance rover. It isn't very large, but it is a very complicated piece of equipment on the inside. It will pump in Martian air, separate out the carbon dioxide, and then split the carbon dioxide into oxygen gas and carbon monoxide. It will store the oxygen and then release everything else back into the atmosphere. And so this will test to see if future Mars explorers will be able to get oxygen this way. Now, students always have lots of questions for me, and one question I've heard a lot is, what if something goes wrong? What if something goes wrong in the landing sequence? Or what if the camera or the antenna breaks after Perseverance lands? Well, things do not always go the way they are expected to. For example, back in 1999, the Mars Climate Orbiter was sent from Earth to Mars. It blasted off, it traveled all the way through space from here to Mars, and then at the last moment, we lost contact with it. We never heard any signal from it again. It turns out there was a human error in programming the orbiter. Scientists think that it either crash landed on Mars or it never entered the atmosphere and it stayed in orbit around the sun. Either way, things went wrong and the orbiter never worked, and things could go wrong again. But when engineers design something, they design it with systems of redundancy. Redundancy means that there are backups or fail-safe systems built in. So if one system doesn't work, there are others that can be used. Perseverance has redundancy in several of its systems. For example, there are 3 ways the rover can communicate and send signals back to Earth. If one breaks, well, there are still 2 ways to communicate. There are a total of 23 cameras on Perseverance. They do not all do the same thing, and they do not all take pictures the same way, but if one camera breaks, there are still many more to do the job. Finally, to learn more about the Mars 2020 mission and the Perseverance rover, you should visit the NASA webpage at mars.nasa.gov. You can also visit my Canvas page. I have that link and some others to help you learn more about this exciting mission. There's one last thought I want to leave you with, Willard Wildcats. Those samples that Perseverance is collecting and dropping off in little canisters across the surface of Mars, they will be collected and brought back to the Earth, but not for at least 10 years. That means that you will be in college or maybe starting your careers, and so you might be among the first scientists to examine these samples when they're finally brought back. This mission is your generation's future. I'll see you next time.